We need space from you. We don't want you around anymore. My aunt typed the words first, tacking on a heart like it could dull the sting. My mother replied with a thumbs up. My cousin added a prayer emoji, as if digital symbols could sanctify exile. For a moment, I just stared at the screen, feeling the room tilt around me. The fan kept spinning. The evening acted normal, but something inside me had collapsed through an invisible floor. You know that sensation when your chest feels too full to breathe? When your own name slips from your mouth like it belongs to someone else. That was me alone in my apartment, holding a phone that suddenly felt as heavy as the house I no longer belonged to. Hi everyone. My name is Briar. I listen more than I speak, until silence isn't enough. Tonight, my silence screamed. The people who raised me had just declared I was disposable. So I did what felt true. I looked at what they actually valued. Not me, not my boundaries, not even the way I showed up to birthdays I wasn't invited to. They loved convenience. And in our family, convenience had a number. My uncle, my mother's brother, packed their boxes after Sunday dinner, scooping up framed photos like they were groceries. He sent me a photo of my childhood violin peeking from a bag labeled miscellaneous. He smiled in the background, probably thinking he'd scored some kind of victory. My fingers moved before my fear could catch up. Of course, I typed back in the family thread. I'll cancel my direct deposits first thing. Then I set the phone down as if I'd just dropped a match. Love should be air, not a subscription. If I'm the autopay keeping their lights on while mine dim, I have every right to flip the switch. I walked to the window, watching the city hold its breath. A dog barked, a bus sighed, a neighbor's TV laughter leaked through the walls. In the reflection, I saw myself, shoulders unclenched, tears absent, a woman I barely recognized. The phone buzzed once, twice, then settled into a steady, low tremor. Little earthquakes of fury. Briar, let's be reasonable. Don't be dramatic. This is exactly why we need space. Somewhere a drawer slammed. Somewhere a keychain jingled like a warning. I typed nothing. I made tea. I pulled out the folder from my desk, the one with bank statements, receipts, the tuition I wired for a niece who calls me extra, and placed it on the table like a lantern. By midnight, the family thread lit up like sirens outside a dark house, and the first secret started to crack. The first secret was always money. Not hidden well at all. A wire transfer here, a temporary loan there. My father once said, family debt isn't real debt. Blood is collateral. I believed him once, until I realized blood doesn't earn interest and collateral can dry up. When my phone wouldn't stop vibrating, I laid each message beside the receipts I'd kept for years. Every dollar told a story. Stories they'd never tell the neighbors. The mortgage I covered when my brother forgot to file taxes. The $7,800 credit card bill I paid after my cousin's emergency trip to Cancun. The $15,000 transfer to keep my mother's roof from collapsing while she claimed to church friends it was a blessing. The irony? They adored the money, despised the hands that delivered it. At 12:17 a.m., a message from my uncle landed like a stone in water. Don't do anything hasty, Briar. You know how much the family relies on you. Relies. That word echoed in my chest like an insult. They didn't rely on me, they drained me. And when I refused to be their reservoir any longer, suddenly I was dramatic, toxic, too much. I crossed my small living room. Each step weighted with memory. Their laughter when the bill slid to me. My aunt's casual. You're the stable one, Briar. You don't mind. My cousin's joke. She's basically the family ATM. The worst part, I smiled through it. Smiled while my throat burned. Love teaches you to perform generosity like it's oxygen. But love without respect? That's a chokehold. That night, I opened my laptop. My fingers hovered, trembling, then steadied. I logged into the bank portal. Rows of transfers glowed like confessional lights. Cancel, cancel, cancel. Each click louder than their messages. Louder than my shaking breath. At 12:44 a.m., I closed the laptop and leaned back. Silence stretched across the room. For once, it wasn't terrifying. It was mine. The phone rang again. My mother's name flashed, then disappeared. then my father's, then a cousin's, a chorus of desperate calls. I didn't answer. Outside, a car slowed. Headlights brushed the window, searching. My tea had gone cold. My hand stayed warm. That was when I realized this wasn't just about money. This was survival. Survival has consequences. By morning, the first consequence came knocking. Sharp, measured, at 8:06 a.m. The kind of knock that knows your name before you answer. Barefoot, clutching the mug I'd reheated but never sipped, I stood still. My phone vibrated on the counter, teetering near the edge. Another knock, 3 beats like a gavel. I opened the door halfway, chain fastened. My uncle stood there, suit jacket wrinkled, tie loose. A man who always carried himself like a lawyer, even when he wasn't. His eyes scanned my apartment as if I'd hidden treasure. This isn't how things should be handled. Family disputes aren't meant to play out in public. I almost chuckled. Public? The only audience had been the faint glow of my bank screen. Yet he stared at me as if I'd already staged some grand spectacle. I canceled the deposits, I said calmly, though my voice carried quiet strength. The chain rattled as I leaned closer. That's not public. That's private. That's me taking back what belongs to me. His jaw tightened. Through the crack in the door, he pressed a folder toward me. They're upset, he said. They say you're threatening family stability. They demand explanations. I didn't take it. Instead, I let silence stretch between us. The hallway behind him smelled faintly of burnt toast. Somewhere downstairs, a child's laugh echoed. For a dizzying moment, it felt like an ordinary morning. Explanations, I whispered. Where were their explanations when I covered their secrets? He didn't flinch, but he didn't respond either. His silence spoke volumes. I gently closed the door, the folder still hanging from his hand. He never knocked again. I slid the chain back and pressed my forehead to the cool wood. By the time I looked at my phone, the constant buzzing had stopped. Only one message remained, glowing in the center of the screen. From my mother. You'll regret this. We always take care of our own. I stared at it until the words blurred. Take care of our own. It sounded like tradition, but it felt more like a threat cloaked in familiarity. For the first time, I understood that family loyalty could easily masquerade as blackmail. Sleep eluded me that night. The phrase "we always take care of our own" echoed in my mind, binding itself around every thought. By dawn, my apartment seemed smaller, the walls pressing in. I brewed coffee I couldn't taste and finally opened the folder my uncle had left. Inside were receipts, bank slips, and printouts of my emails when I transferred money for urgent repairs. Every transaction documented, every secret accounted for. But instead of gratitude, each page had been twisted into an accusation. Proof of dependence, threats to family stability, words underlined in red. It wasn't a record. It was a trap. My chest tightened, but anger rose faster than fear. I grabbed a pen and began marking the margins. Dates, amounts, names, every lie tied to each withdrawal. I knew their secrets better than they did because I had funded their cover-ups. My handwriting carved truth across the pages, clawing through the deception. At 9:12 a.m., my father called. I answered, ready to hear him tremble. Briar, honey, let's not make this ugly. You're overreacting. Think about appearances. I closed my eyes, listening to his measured, rehearsed tone. You didn't care about appearances when you slipped me the $5,000 tax bill on Thanksgiving, did you? My voice cracked, not from weakness, but release. You didn't care when I paid off the mortgage while you toasted my brother's promotion. A sharp inhale. You sound unwell. That's the family script. Anyone who refuses to comply is deemed unwell. Easier than facing the truth. I hung up before he could finish. My hands shook, not from fear, but determination. I gathered the folder, my notes, and slid them into a larger envelope. I knew exactly where I was going. If they wanted explanations, they would get them, not whispered in living rooms or buried in text threads, but undeniable, documented. By 11 a.m., I stood outside the office of a lawyer whose card I'd kept tucked in my wallet just in case. For the first time, just in case felt like destiny. The office smelled of polished wood, and old dust, the kind of place where truth carries weight. A clock ticked above the receptionist's desk with courtroom precision, every second counting toward a decision I couldn't undo. Across from me, Mr. Keating, gray hair slicked back and glasses perched low, examined the folder without a word. He'd seen cases like mine before. Families treating one member like a vault until the lock jammed. "You've been their financial caretaker," he said, flipping through receipts like a dealer shuffling cards. "Now they claim reliance. Interesting." I leaned forward, hands clenched. They told me they don't want me in their lives anymore. But the moment I cancel deposits, suddenly I'm a threat. They demand explanations. He looked up, sharp eyes meeting mine. "Give them one, but not in whispers. In court filings. Court filings. My family's entire house of cards toppled in my mind. They built everything on the assumption that I would stay silent, that conflict was cheaper than confrontation. But silence had already cost me too much. I signed the papers steadily, each stroke slicing through the narrative they had written for me. We filed to expose the financial exploitation, misrepresentation, and coerced loans. Keating assured me that if they pushed back, they would be forced to answer questions long buried. Stepping back into daylight, the city felt different, brighter, as if it had waited for me to choose myself. But peace was fleeting. By the time I returned home, my voicemail was already full. If you want more stories like this, make sure to subscribe to my channel for the next chapter. You won't want to miss it. Again, my cousin's voice, sharp and frantic, cut through the quiet. "You're destroying us, Briar. Do you even realize what you've started?" I sat perched on the edge of my bed, listening as the message looped. Their panic wasn't about losing me. It was about losing money, comfort, the quiet that allowed them to live without consequences. I hit delete. The apartment hummed in steady, resolute silence. They thought they'd erase me from the family. What they didn't know was that I was about to rewrite the ending completely. By the end of the week, the storm had hit. Not outside, no rain, no thunder, but within the family. My filings had landed, and suddenly the same relatives who texted, "We need space," were leaving voicemails dripping with, "We love you, Briar. Let's talk." Love had become currency, offered only when their accounts were frozen. Friday evening, I returned home to find a note slipped under my door. Thick stationery, my mother's handwriting curling across it like it always did on birthday cards. "We can fix this privately. Please don't involve outsiders in family matters. Come to the house. Dinner Sunday." Dinner. As if one roast chicken could erase years of being their unpaid bank. Yet I stared at the note longer than I should have, because some part of me, childlike, foolish, still ached for belonging. Sunday arrived anyway. I walked into the house I had once called home, carrying not a casserole, but folders filled with every document. The dining room smelled the same: lemon polish, rosemary, tension. Everyone was already seated. My father at the head, my mother with hands folded neatly, my brother smirking like he was watching a performance he'd directed. "Briar," my father began, voice calm, measured, like he was addressing a courtroom. "All this, it's unnecessary. Family helps family. You've always understood that." I slid the envelope across the table toward him. "Help," I said softly. "Not erasure. Not exploitation." My uncle shifted, flushing. My cousin muttered about betrayal. My mother whispered my name, both a prayer and an accusation. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I simply held their gaze, letting silence carry the weight words couldn't. Finally, I rose. "You wanted space," I reminded them steadily. "This is what space looks like." And as I left the dining room, the scrape of my chair echoed louder than any apology they had yet to offer. Outside, the night air pressed cold against my skin. It felt like freedom, raw, sharp, undeniable. The house of cards had only begun to tremble. By Wednesday, Keating called. His voice buzzed with controlled excitement, the tone of a man who had cornered wolves. "They've responded," he said. "But in trying to defend themselves, they've admitted more than they know. Tax misreporting, transfers under false pretenses, your brother's accounts are, let's say, compromised." I gripped the phone. For years I had been their safety net, the silent fixer behind polished appearances. Now, without the net, they were collapsing, every lie padded with my money unraveling thread by thread. That night, I passed their house. Curtains drawn, but raised. Panic voices leaked out, shattering the silence of a street that had once admired them. The proud family sounded exactly as they were, desperate. My phone buzzed. A message from my mother, trembling with fear she never showed. Please stop. You're ruining us. I stared at it. For the first time, I felt no guilt. I hadn't ruined them, they'd ruined themselves. I had only stopped paying the bill. The next day, I lingered by my office window. The city pulsed below, strangers moving briskly with coffees in hand, oblivious to the quiet war I waged. No one knew the weight of years spent as everyone's answer, until I became their question. That evening, Kading emailed the official notice. Court date set. Their signatures, their panic, sealed in black ink. I sat in my living room, folders spread like a map of survival. Tea steamed beside me. For the first time in years, I felt weightless. They had exiled me with a text, expecting desperation. Instead, I stood taller, holding proof that their kingdom rested on my silence. Soon, the world would hear the sound of their collapse. The courthouse smelled of marble and dust, history and judgment intertwined. I walked in steadily, clutching my folders like armor. My heart pounded, not with fear, but with rhythm, the drumbeat of reclaiming what they tried to take. My worth. When my family entered, the room shifted. My father's gaze lowered. My mother's lips pressed thin. My brother tried to smoke, but failed. My uncle's collar glistened with sweat. Less a dynasty, more the cornered creatures they were. Keating rose, calm, precise, each word like a scalpel. Exhibit after exhibit laid bare the truth. Transfers marked as loans, tuition receipts, mortgages, vacations, all in my name. None repaid, none acknowledged. They whispered, denied. But the paper did not lie. Paper remembers. When my turn came, I stood firm. I had been told I was loved, but only when money flowed. I was told I belonged, but only if I paid the fee. Family takes care of its own. But I had been keeping them alive while they buried me in silence. The room was still. Even the judge leaned forward. In that silence, years of being the quiet provider, the easy target, the scapegoat, broke free. They slipped away like dust shaken from old curtains. The ruling wasn't instant, but the damage was done. Assets frozen. Investigations ordered. Their empire of borrowed comfort crumbled in daylight. Outside, on courthouse steps, the sun felt different. Honest, sharp, undeniable. I breathed it in slowly. My phone buzzed again. Message from my mother, come home. I stared until the screen dimmed. I slipped it into my bag, silent. Home wasn't behind me anymore. It was wherever peace existed, wherever my name didn't mean debt. For the first time, I walked away lighter. If you felt the intensity of this story and want more like it, make sure to subscribe to my channel for the next chapter of truth, resilience, and family drama.